Hi guys, my name is Camila. I'm the blogger at Pies and Tacos, and I really love making macarons, and I also love making vegan macarons. So in today's video I'm going to talk to you about vegan macarons. I'm going to give you some basic tips and a basic guidance on how to go about making vegan macarons, whether you're having trouble with them or whether you're thinking about starting to make them or you just want to perfect your technique. So this is what I'm going to talk to you about today. So I'll start by saying that there's no such thing as a foolproof recipe when it comes to macarons or vegan macarons. Recipes are going to work differently for different people. They're very personal. It comes down to you finding a method and a recipe that you like and then working on perfecting it, working on getting it right and customize it to you, to your kitchen, to your oven, to your equipment, and to how you go about making macarons. So it might take some shopping around, it might take some experimenting, but it's all good, it's all a part of it. Get ready for experimenting if you plan on tackling vegan macarons. And I understand that ingredients cost money. Sometimes I'll get somebody that gets mad at me and they make a review saying that my recipe didn't work and they wasted all this money, because almond flour is not always super cheap. So which was why I recommend to you do your homework, do a lot of research before you start, and watch videos like this one, read blog posts, and just make sure that you get your information and that you have like a solid base before you get started. And as you are progressing and as you are practicing, also always go back and always watch videos and get your information out there. Join Facebook groups, whatever it takes for you to stay informed and for you to stay learning. So with that in mind, I'm doing this vegan macaron basic guide. I also have the blog post on my blog that you can read. And I'm also releasing a vegan macaron troubleshooting post on my blog that it's a visual guide that I show you the most common issues that happen, why they happen, how to fix them. So you got to do a little bit of detective work if you're having issues with vegan macarons or just regular macarons also. You have to do some investigating work and you have to try to find out why the issues are happening. Because for example, hollow macarons, several things can cause hollow macarons. The feet spreading out, a few things can cause that to happen. So if you do your research and you do some experimentation, you can try to find out for yourself what is happening and you can try to master them. Okay, so let's start with ingredients. So for vegan macarons, you're going to need aquafaba, which is the water from chickpeas. Some people use water from other beans and some people use something that's called potato protein. I have not tried it with potato protein yet, but I know that some people have a lot of success with it. And I've had a few requests, so I'm planning on trying soon. But I use aquafaba, and I use aquafaba straight from a chickpea can. As in, I open the chickpea can, drain it, and use that water. Before, in my first videos, you will notice that I'm reducing the aquafaba, which means that I'm boiling the liquid until it reduces to half. And then I'm letting that cool down in the fridge, and then I'm using that. I don't do that anymore. That's not a necessary step, I found out. I experimented with it, and my macarons that I don't reduce the aquafaba come out just as great, and I don't need to do that step. It takes hours to do it, you know, to wait for the aquafaba to cool down, so it's not necessary. So I recommend, again, experiment for yourself. I know of bakers that still reduce their aquafaba, so that might be something that you want to do. That might be something that gives you better results. You have to experiment. Also, you can use homemade aquafaba, as in you can boil dried chickpeas with water. I recommend checking out Lazy Cat Kitchen homemade aquafaba post. I'll put the link below, because you need to have a certain ratio of chickpeas and water, because it needs to be concentrated enough in order for you to use it to make meringue and to make other desserts and to make macarons. So you need the aquafaba. You also need some granulated sugar. You need some powdered sugar, almond flour. That's it. If you're a beginner, I do not recommend that you flavor your shells unless you're adding matcha powder or cocoa powder or like a dry powder like that. Don't use turmeric, don't use cinnamon. Those don't go well with the macaron batter. They're going to make your macarons crack, so don't use them. You gotta be very careful with what you add to your macaron batter, because it's very delicate, it's very finicky in a way. So once you get the hang of it, then you start experimenting with adding extracts. There's some people that add extracts. You can experiment with adding color. I recommend using gel food color or powder food color. Don't use liquid food coloring. And you also need some cream of tartar for the meringue. It is not mandatory. You can do without it. I've done it without it. The cream of tartar just helps the meringue be more stable, and if you're doing something like the French method, which is what I use for my vegan macarons, the meringue tends to be a little bit more easy to collapse and easy to have things go wrong with it. So the cream of tartar gives you some stability to the meringue. If you can't find cream of tartar in your area where you live, you can use vinegar. I've done it with vinegar. These macarons over here, I've made them with vinegar instead of cream of tartar, the same amount, a quarter teaspoon. Anyway, about the meringue, I want to tell you that you need to make absolute sure that your meringue is at stiff peak. So if you have soft meringue, you're going to have issues with that. And it's very hard to over whip the aquafaba meringue as it is with the egg white meringue, because you can whip, and it might take a while for you to whip it to stiff peak. Sometimes it can take even up to 15 minutes. Especially depending on the mixer that you're using, so it's gonna take some time. And then as you're whipping the meringue, you start adding the granulated sugar slowly, incrementally, so it gets incorporated into the meringue. So you gotta make sure that the meringue is at stiff peaks. If the meringue is not at stiff peaks, it's gonna cause you several issues. Runny batter, the macarons can spread out in the oven, cracked shells, and you don't want that to happen. So make sure that those peaks are stiff and shooting straight up. I have videos where I show how the meringue should be. So make sure to watch those videos also. After you make the meringue, it's time to do the macaronage, which means you're adding the dry ingredients, the almond flour and the powdered sugar, to the meringue, and you're folding them with a spatula until the batter becomes runny. Now I want to say this. First of all, make sure that you're sifting the almond flour and the powdered sugar. Make sure that you find a nice quality almond flour that's dry, that's not lumpy, that you can just sift it once. If you sift your almond flour and you find out that there's a lot of residual almond flour in the sifter, that's probably not a good almond flour. That's probably way too thick. You need a finely sifted almond flour. So if you are familiar with making regular macarons, you will notice that when we make regular macarons, we fold the batter until we achieve the figure-8 stage, which means that you pick up some batter with a spatula and you let the batter flow as you're drawing a figure-8. And when you're able to draw several figure-8s with the batter, that means that the batter is ready without the batter breaking up. That means that the batter is ready. With vegan macarons, don't let it get to that stage. If it gets to that stage, the batter will be over-mixed. Even if you pipe it and it doesn't look overmixed, the feet will explode in the oven. So be very careful. I find that as soon as I add the dry ingredients and I start mixing, I only have to mix it for a little bit. As soon as the batter becomes runny, somewhat runny and flowy, I can already pipe it. And also that has helped me with not getting hollow macarons as much as I was getting before with the vegan macarons. So even my batter looked nice, and it looked great when I piped it, but then the feet would be so tall when I baked it that it would be hollow. So that's not happening to me anymore because I don't fold the batter until it gets to that stage. And also, of course, make sure that you're not under mixing the batter. If you pipe the batter and it has a point on top that won't smooth out, that means that the batter is under mixed. You just gotta mix it a little bit longer. Okay, so we've made our meringue, it's at stiff peaks, we've mixed the macaronage, it's at the perfect consistency, we pipe the macarons on a baking sheet. And then we put them in the oven. And this is the part where a lot of people are failing when they're making vegan macarons. Number one, you need to have an oven thermometer. Don't even attempt to make macarons if you don't have an oven thermometer. You are going to waste ingredients because home ovens are not accurate at keeping the temperature of the oven to the temperature that you set it to. It doesn't matter if you've got a brand new oven, they're just not accurate. So I have a post where I'm explaining everything about the oven, everything you need to know about the oven, why it's so important to have an oven thermometer. It's my vegan matcha macaron post. Please check it out. I'll link it down below. Read it. It has a lot of information that's going to be very valuable to you. You need to have an oven thermometer. Go get one and then you come back and you make macarons. Don't attempt before. I cannot stress this enough. The number of people that I have coming to me that are having problems with their batches, that the issue is because they don't have an oven thermometer, because the macarons are spreading out in the oven and they don't know why, they don't know what's happening. They're like, I'm setting to the temperature you need an oven thermometer because your oven is often lying to you. So the way to control this is to have an oven thermometer. It's very simple. Just put one in there and you will know what the actual temperature in the oven is, and then you can control it. You can turn it down or turn it up. Which brings me to the temperature. You're gonna have to find out what temperature works best in your oven. My previous oven, I was baking my macarons at 310. I can't do that on my current oven that I have now. I have to bake them at 285 or the feet will expand in the oven. So you're gonna have to run a few test batches to see what temperature works best for your oven. And on this vegan matcha macaron post, I explain how you do that, how you run the test batches. Basically, you just make one batch of macarons and you pipe it between 4 different baking sheets and you bake each at one temperature, and you can even change the oven rack level to see what gives you the best results. And it's important to do that with the same batch, to bake at different temperatures with the same batch, because sometimes the feet are exploding, but maybe it's because you overmixed the batch, right? So it's important to do that with the same batch of macarons. So here's the rule of thumb. If your macarons are spreading out in the oven or cracking, you need to turn the oven temperature down. If the macarons are not forming a bottom when they're baking, or they're gooey on the inside, you need to turn the temperature up and bake longer possibly. If they're coming out with no feet, you need to turn the temperature up a little bit. So this is going to come with experimenting, and also check out my my troubleshooting post where I go over all the issues, everything that could be happening, so you can do some tests and you can try for yourself to see how to improve your vegan macaron make. So here you go, guys. These are the basics. These are just some basic information that are going to be very helpful to you when you're trying to make vegan macarons. Make sure to watch all the videos. Make sure to read blog posts, not just mine, read other bakers, watch their videos also, get all the information you can, and then you experiment and you find out what works best for you, for your macarons, for your kitchen, for your oven, for the way you like to do things. So I really hope you like this video. I hope it's informative. I hope it's helpful to you, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks. Bye.